very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're here in Abu Dhabi, Hub 71, and next we have the one and only CEO of Lamsa, Badr. Thank you so much for this warm welcome to Abu Dhabi.
Thank you for being here, and welcome to Abu Dhabi. Welcome to Hub 71. Welcome to Lamsa.
Thank you. So Lamsa I have here is an award-winning kids platform, obviously, for educational content for kids from ages 2 to 8. And correct me if I'm wrong. So I just wanted to start off this conversation and ask you, how does the day of a CEO in Lamsa look like?
So my day is quite interesting. I like to start very early.
Okay.
I actually try to wake up around 4 a.m. every day.
Are you serious?
I am very serious.
4 a.m.
Yeah.
We woke up at 6 for the shoot today and we're all tired. Oh my God.
That's
How
become
come?
my natural clock.
Okay.
I like to have about 2 hours to myself in the morning where I reflect on what happened yesterday, reflect and strategize for what I'm going to do today. And I found that to be very useful. And then I start doing my house chores with my kids, make sure that they're set up for a nice day, and then do my exercises, and then arrive to the office early. And yeah, I spend most of the mornings just working with the teams to put the right strategies for the day, follow up on things. We try to have lunch together as a team to break for a bit and then just cruise through the rest of the day.
Amazing. Do your kids use Lamsa?
My kids were part of the inspiration,
Okay.
but they are now more like co-creators with us at Lamsa.
All right.
So we get a lot of inspiration from my kids, yes.
Amazing. So tell me about this inspirational story. How did Lamsa come to be?
Lamsa's inspiration actually started about 50 years ago.
50.
Yes.
All right.
When my mother graduated from her university, and she met Dr. Sally Turki, who just arrived to Saudi, and brought in the whole concept of Montessori learning and specialized methods in early childhood development. And my mother joined her movement to become one of the first early childhood educators in Saudi. And so I had the honor and privilege of being taught by this group of phenomenal visionaries in the field of early childhood.
You grew up with them, basically.
I grew up in a household where education is very important. And at a very young age, we were exposed to a lot of these methods. And I think moving fast forward, as a young student myself, I was attracted to the vision of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who set up a university to focus on the future technology and digitization of the region. And I was very lucky to be selected part of that group to join that movement and get inspired by His Highness himself. We studied technology, but with the vision of how do you apply that to solve for real life problems.
Right. And develop societies.
Develop society, impact society at large. And coincidentally, I then met my wife, who happened to be also a researcher in early childhood education.
See how things all work out in the end?
Yeah,
Crazy.
like Steve Jobs says, connecting the dots.
Yes.
And so I was trying to be a good husband and helping her as she was doing her thesis and her papers. And I started reading about early childhood, and it just pulled me, fascinated me, the science and the theories behind what happens in the formative years of a child was just very attractive to me.
Incredible.
And it looked like a massive challenge that we could definitely use innovation to help and address some of these gaps.
Right.
And then my kids were born.
Okay.
And when my kids were born...
Look at the smile on his face.
Absolutely. I carry them everywhere with me. When my kids were born, seeing that theory come to life in those beautiful minds.
But also you were responsible at that point. You
and
felt
now
the
you're
pressure.
responsible, absolutely. It's one of the biggest responsibilities. And that really got me to dedicate my life to serve this purpose, inspired by my own kids, their development, their potential,
Of course.
and trying to solve that and bring that to a much wider group, which is
Right.
children globally.
Right. So technically, how did you form that team? Your co-founders, your COOs that we met. How do you form that team? Where did that start? I assume you had a lot of pitches that you've done in front of investors. So lead us through the logistics of that now. The idea was there. How did you bring that to life?
That's a beautiful question. So when we first started, we were like, okay, what would it take to innovate in this traditional field of education? And so when we look at the landscape, you'll see a lot of people trying to solve for it by just adding more technology to it. And so we decided to take a complete different approach. We said, okay, let's think about this for a second. Today, children are exposed to a lot of media. So we're living in a very, fast-paced environment where kids are exposed to a window
Everything and
which
anything.
exposes them to the whole world. When we were younger, we could sit in a living room or in a bedroom and have our books,
Right.
and our entire 100% would be
In the books.
in the book.
For me, it was the cassettes, at least.
Or
if
the
you watched,
cassette.
Disney.
At least,
Yeah.
you caught on to the cassette.
Yeah.
And now it's different. Now with a click of a button, they, get into these metaverses. And so we thought, okay, let's start from there. Why can't education be
That.
as engaging and as attractive to kids and to children and learners in the same way? And so we actually started hiring some of the best talents around the world that were involved in the creation of things that really did well in the mainstream media.
In that sector. Yeah.
So let's say, artists that have worked on ex-Disney IP, people from the Japanese animation industry,
All right.
musicians that have, created records that did really well. So that was one part of the equation. And then we're like, okay, when it comes to education, how can we then mix and marry those two worlds, which are completely different worlds?
Right.
And we saw, okay, let's bring some of the best educators from around the world and then put them in a room together with those creative people and experiment. Because when we started, there wasn't a playbook that you could follow,
Of course.
because we were part of the first movement
Exactly.
of innovating education globally and particularly early childhood. So there wasn't anything that you could copy. And so it was a lot of A/B testing, a lot of experimentation to find that fine intersection between pedagogy, creativity, and using technology and innovation to help scale that.
Right. Interesting. Now tell me, core cultural values that you have within the company. What would you say are your main values? I did read that there's 7 of them, right, on the website. So if you can run me through those now.
You asked about the team and how we hire, attract, maintain that synergy between the team, and what does it take. And I think culture is the answer to that. So if you ask me, how do you attract some of the best minds around the world or talents around the world, and I would say it's due to our culture. And how do we maintain those people? It's through our culture. And when we talk about our culture, I remember the first day we arrived to our offices to set them up, we still didn't have furniture, so we all sat on the floor.
Okay.
And I have a picture of that. We sat on the floor.
Like kids love to.
Yeah. And we, as a team, worked together. We said, what is our culture? And we set those words and we never looked back. And it was just everyone that joins after that automatically fits in. And actually, it's so interesting. People that don't fit that culture don't find this environment attractive for them, just from an energy perspective.
I see.
Once you step into Lamsa, it almost feels like you're part of that culture.
Right.
It's the same DNA. And it mainly revolves around empowerment. Our culture is all about empowering each other. So none of us, we start by saying none of us are perfect. That's the starting point. There is no such thing as perfection. So the moment that you walk into the door, we all realize, hey, I'm not perfect, but I'm good at a couple of things, right? Even if it's one thing, and I'm most probably the best at it globally. And we say, okay, how can we double down on that? How can we empower you to nurture what you're good at and just, scale that talent and bring it to its maximum potential? Your area of weakness
Somebody else will be
is someone else's strength.
Right.
So we try not to spend too much time
Debating that.
taking your area of weakness and trying to make that into your area of strength. We believe that no matter how much you work on it, you will probably not be the best in the world in that.
Of course.
So we'd rather, double down on what you're good at and empower you and enable you, and make sure that everything you do is done without any judgment. And that has played a big role at Lamsa as well.
But I feel like your entire team also has one thing in common, which is they're all extremely responsible people, because at the end of the day, you know that you're developing something which will potentially influence a newborn child, right? So I think that everybody that does come in has to have that in mind. And I just wanted to ask you, do you feel pressured at times, that, what you're doing is changing someone's entire life?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When you reach millions of kids, you wake up sometimes and you're like, yes, it is a big responsibility. But I think the standards and how we challenge ourselves to stay focused and making sure that we're always doing the right thing is whatever we build, we build for our own kids.
That's a great way of looking at it.
And if you're comfortable giving what you build to your own child, then you're definitely comfortable giving it to children of the world.
Right.
And so that's our compass.
Right.
It's, would you give this and trust this, whatever it is, tool or experience, to your own child? And a lot of, you said the Lamsa team, you've met a couple of them, you see that sense of responsibility. It's because most of them are young parents and they got attracted to
I wanted to ask, do all of them that come in need to have kids then, or?
So it varies. Some don't.
First question on the interview, do you have kids?
Some don't, but some do. And the ones that have children, their kids are actually very vested and involved. They're all super user testers of Lamsa. The ones that don't,
do you experiment
because they're either younger or they still haven't gotten to that part of their journey in life.
They're well prepared, I think.
They actually, they get a lot of training on child development before they step into that world, which a lot of us parents only realize that we need to know so much about that only after we're into the stage
when
of
you see
parenting.
it, then you're like, okay, what do I do now? Okay, I see. Now, research does show that between the ages of when you're born and 5 years old, that range is absolutely crucial, right, for the development of the brain, etc. So, can we discuss, why these early, let's say, childhood education years they're so vital within Lamsa? What happens, at that point technically in the brain, and how are you guys kind of adapting to that?
About 2,000 years ago, Aristotle said, give me a child till he's 7 and I'll show you the man. And in our culture as well, we've got a lot of these examples that highlight and focus on the first few formative years of a human's life. Now, thanks to modern science, we now understand why those great philosophers or leaders or said those things. They said those things because modern science tells us now that in every second of a child's life in those early years, the child has the ability to create 1 million neural connection per second in their brain.
That's incredible.
Imagine that, 1 million neural connection per second. It's through a scientific theory of plasticity,
Okay.
serve and return, where every serve, there's a return to it, building those neural connections, which is forming 90% of the cognitive development of a human just in the first few years. Now, imagine this, the brain develops simultaneously through these different functions. What we know of so far based on science is that there's the cognitive function, there's the social, emotional, language, and motor functions of the brain that are developing in such a rapid speed. And the beauty about human development is that they're so interlinked. I think most scientists until today don't understand how beautiful those connections are being formed in such a interlinked manner that you cannot isolate any of these and work on them separately. And therefore, the first few years are really an opportunity that never comes again.
Right.
If we miss it, we miss it. But if we capture that opportunity and seize it and feed those brain neural connections with the right things and expose them to the right environments, then that is leading to unlocking that human's potential for lifelong learning, success, health, and well-being.
Although scientists don't know much about the brain yet, right? How much percent was it? 16, 17 that we're...
It's debatable.
Yeah.
Different scientists, different researchers say different things, but we can all agree that
There's so much more.
there's so much to be unlocked.
Right.
And we see that with how us as humans are evolving with all of this empowerment. And now we're seeing the use of advanced technology and deep tech, and we're yet to see how impactful that is on the human's brain and the ability and the human potential.
Right.
But yeah, the first few years are fundamental. Longitude research shows that the literacy level of a child at age 8 can give us a really good understanding of that child's potential success in life. So it is a very important stage that only comes once, and it's an investment opportunity.
Right, right. But if you're allowed to say your opinion, what do you think on, the current, let's say, kids shows, Disney, Cartoon Network, like all the things that, a child would see if they would turn on the TV? What is your opinion on that?
I think...
Because there's some brutal things in those cartoons, I have to say. Because I've done a sort of, extended essay on it in university while I was studying.
Oh, wow.
And the very first episode, let's say, of Mickey Mouse, for example, the black and white one, it was about the 3 different ways that Mickey was trying to commit suicide because Minnie didn't love him. And how that later connects to the antidepressant lobby, and how in those early, child years, the brain develops into thinking, okay, well, suicide can be an option, pills can be an option. And it's a very, very negative, thing, especially for a young child watching these scenes. Subconsciously, they remember it, And then I've researched some other movies and some other cartoons. That's why I'm asking you, what is your true opinion? I know that it's not all of the cartoons now that we see have these issues, but there's a lot of violence happening, even with Tom and Jerry, even with the cartoons that I grew up with. And now I see it. So if you could say, what is your opinion on those things? Do you think that there is some sort of secret messaging there, or?
I would say it is a big responsibility for all of us adults to really make sure that we understand what our kids are being exposed to. In the earliest years, imagine this, the first thing that a child is exposed to after spending time with their parent or parents is the children's books.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see
Animals, colors,
exactly,
shapes.
and the development of children's literature and children's books have just been fascinating. It's the first exposure to children to the outside world. And there are great artists and great educators like Eric Carle, who I've had the pleasure to be trained and exposed to his theories, who created the book The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which is in probably every home now or nursery. If you look at the simplicity of these books, but yet the messaging and what it does and the magical world it unlocks in the mind of children, that is the kind of media we should expose our kids to. Now, as parents, it all starts with what we do. What are we exposed to and what we expose our kids to? And I think a lot of parents underestimate the power of leading by example for their own household. And so you're right. A lot of the media that's out there is not appropriate developmentally for kids or even culturally for kids. You see, we live in a world where a lot of young parents are going back to their identity. Mm-hmm. Who am I in this big world? Mm-hmm. And we're taking a lot of pride in where we come from, because unless you know where you come from, you cannot really go forward and change the world. Mm-hmm. You need to be deeply rooted. And so that discovery that's happening with parents, young parents, ourselves, is helping us think about, what do I want to expose for my own children?
Right.
And what is my strategy for developing them?
And how much time am I actually going to spend with my child, right?
And that's a very good point. Unfortunately, we've all become very busy.
Right.
But busy doing what? We tell ourselves we're busy building a life and a better future for our kids. I call upon parents to take a step back and say, yes, I will work hard, but as part of my duty, my everyday duty, is I need to be there for my kids.
Right.
Because if we understand how their brains develop, that every second counts, then that is the best investment you can do for your kids, is to spend time with them. They used to say it takes a village to raise a child. And I agree so much with that. And ideally, if we can all go back to villages and have the entire community raise that child, that was the most ideal way you can develop a child. But we had to move to cities. And then we had to work, both of us, mothers, fathers, and everyone, the extended family is working.
We became very money-driven as well, which is
and
something
we became very driven
capitalistic, society
by different needs. But I think it's time to go back and take a pause and say, what am I really doing for my own kids?
Right.
And spending time with them and having conversations and engaging with them in learning experiences that broaden their horizons, I think is a fundamental duty of every parent.
It's of significant value, for sure. Now, tell me, to move on to more positive and creative topics, what does Lamsa publish then? What is your content? How does your content look like? I also heard that you personalize it as well. So tell me a little bit about that.
So, as we spoke about the brain and the human's ability to develop their brain architecture, which is responsible for everything else in life, we then find ourselves always asking ourselves this question: what do we do in those years to help that child unlock that potential? So the child in that age is our ultimate beneficiary of all the programming, all the solutions that we do. But then you take a step back to develop that child. You need to connect all the dots around that child. So you've got the educators, and you've got the parents, and you've got the community. All working, or should be working cohesively as a unit to unlock
this child's potential. So what we do at Lamsa is develop tools that empower these different stakeholders to help them develop their children. So for parents, we've got the Lamsa application, which has reached over 20 million parents, that help parents when they come home and they want to spend some quality time with their kids, engaging with them and helping develop them through interactive experiences that are designed to be used as a meaningful way to engage parents and their kids in that
Great.
development process through the use of different techniques, but essentially it's learning through play, which, as the famous Maria Montessori says, the work of a child is play. So we harness the power of play to help kids develop those neural connections and that brain architecture with the support and involvement of the parents and the community.
But it's great that you also have the parents option. I didn't know that you actually advise them on what to do,
Of
what
course.
are the techniques.
The
It's
parents are an integral part of the development process in Lamsa. On the other hand, we have Lamsa Learn, which is a platform that is used by the educational world, starting from the ministries of education,
Great.
the regulators, the school owners and operators, but all the way down to the teacher. And really what it does is that it empowers early childhood educators.
So kindergartens, let's say in schools, also use your product.
Kindergartens, preschools, and then also grade 1, 2, 3.
Amazing.
These are all categorized as early childhood educators. You see, the teacher at that age has about, on average in our region, about 25 kids in the classroom. With a minimal support or tools in the classroom, the teacher needs to look at all those 25 kids
Right.
and all those millions of neural connections and try to develop or maximize the development of those kids. So our tools and platform comes in there exactly to empower those teachers, to turn them from just a teacher that's trying to do all of that alone into
It's hard.
the leader of their classroom. It's a completely different view that we give them and empower them with a lot of tools that allow them to actually be the best teachers that they can be.
Right. But would you say that these game-based, let's say, assessments are more engaging than the traditional, educational techniques that normal kindergartens and schools use? Or you do a mix as well?
We use all the methods and tools and resources that are out there. So if the teacher happens to be in an environment where she's got all those physical things to work with, we definitely embed that type of play and sensory environment into the actual method that we develop for them.
Okay.
If they don't, so we always work with what they have. Like, let's say for environments in some of the countries that we work with, internet is an issue. Internet connectivity is an issue in the classroom.
Right.
So we even support offline modes and paper-based activities that integrate into the teaching methods that we deploy for teachers. So for us, we always look at kind of a custom-built solution for that ministry or that educational environment, where we start by analyzing what's there. Instead of saying what's not there and let's reinvent the wheel. No, what are the things that we have with us, and then how do we capitalize?
Right, right. Would you say you have one, proud, beautiful moment that you remember, where a kindergarten or a specific child or a specific mother came up to you and said something that really, stayed there and was remarkable?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it happens every day, but if you could pick, one.
It does happen every day. You see, like if you think about what are we trying to do? We're trying to unlock potential of these beautiful minds. So really bringing that high quality early childhood education to children everywhere in the years that matter most. And so we're talking about millions and potentially billions of kids who make up a big proportion of the population globally. And so with interacting with millions of kids, every day we get one of those aha moments. We call them the aha moments. Because it really is like a aha, you know, it just makes you smile, makes your heart smile.
Yeah.
But one of the most memorable ones that I'll never forget was we were working with one of the governments, and we were asked to run a culturally based interactive theater show across the country.
Okay.
And so we had our characters, which are loved by millions of kids, come to life through a theater show.
It's like going to Disneyland, basically.
Exactly.
And having them. Okay.
It's like attending a Barney show, or, and so in between the shows, which were fully booked.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, wasn't a single seat that was empty. In between the shows, we had a red carpet moment where our characters come to the red carpet and take pictures with kids. And so the aha moment that I'm getting to, which really resonated with me, was a child saw one of his favorite characters in Lamsa from far, but the queue was too long to get to his favorite character to take a photo with. And so that child and his family waited until the next show and the next red carpet moment, which was a couple of hours later.
Oh my God.
Just to take a picture and hug his favorite character.
What parents do for their kids.
And that to me was like, oh wow, you know, you helped in creating something that is so impactful and means a lot to kids.
Of course.
And you in the digital world, you see the numbers, the millions of people using, but to actually see that, feel it, hear it, use all of your senses, getting in touch with that moment was just magical.
But also the fact that, you know, the parents had the understanding of, you know, this is something that's very important for my child, I have to wait. That's also important, because any other one would just say, let's go next time, right?
Parents are very involved with us at Lamsa. I mean,
amazing.
We on a daily basis we receive thousands of comments, feedback, and we see them being more involved. I'll actually tell you a small finding and an insight. Fathers across the region now are actually almost equally involved in their children's development.
That's an amazing fact.
It is, and we're so proud of that, and therefore we also give them tools for the fathers to be more involved, you know, and linked to their child's development. So we create this, even within the micro level, we create this cohesive unit of a child, mother, and father all working together. And so we're very proud to enable fathers as well, which is a trend that's happening towards their child's development and making their family as a cohesive unit focus on that very importantly.
So would you say you actually have like a feedback section on the website, on the apps, where people can write out their feedback and you can, you know, develop your brand then and your app going forward? You have that option?
Absolutely. We have so many different touch points across digital, physical, so many different avenues for us to capture on a regular basis two things. One is children's feedback and children's engagement and insights and testing with children. And then the parents, and very importantly, co-designing with teachers. So all our products that go to educational institutions are actually co-designed with teachers for teachers.
Okay, I see. What was your biggest challenge? I mean, everything seems very smooth, very beautiful, very happy. What was a challenge that you passed, you know, that really kind of stirred the pot a little bit in the company?
Everything seems so smooth because...
I mean, you deal with children, of course, it's going to be beautiful.
It is beautiful, but it is challenging. Every, I would say, grand vision or big objective that you work on in life that's you're trying to change something comes with a lot of challenges. Not periodically, I would say every day is a challenge. But I've learned, and maybe you're getting that energy from me,
100%.
is that yes, you will encounter challenges once a day, twice a day, in fact, more than 10 times a day, but it's how you deal with those challenges, how you align yourself and your energy and your thoughts and say, okay, this is a challenge, what are we going to do about it? You put a quick solution and you go and fix it and turn that challenge into an opportunity. I'm not saying that as just like a self-development framework. I'm saying that this is what I do to myself, and that's why I believe in downtime. So in the first 2 hours of the day, I spend a lot of time aligning, and that alignment it gives me enough energy and enough tools and frameworks to then face all the challenges that I face on a daily basis. Because the moment you step into a meeting with your team or with partners or with anyone, you need to come at this with 100% energy.
Fully.
No matter what you went through, people, whether it's your team, your partners, your investors, need to get that energy from you. And it's not fair to project anything other than positivity or the right energy or the right vibes if you're a leader.
Right.
And so, yeah, I do face, you asked me to name one challenge, I can't because the challenges are just unlimited and I face them every day, but it's more importantly, what are the frameworks that we put in place to overcome them and quickly get over them and just, move on. And what I will say is that what really helps is having a really clear vision of why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because if you lose focus for a second, a challenge could be detrimental for you.
Of course.
But as long as you know why you're doing what you're doing, any challenge would pass.
Right. I mean, in a couple of other interviews that I've done, I did hear that, quite a few founders actually have this 4 a.m. kind of manifestation process. You're not the first one to say that. And this leads me to my next question. I mean, there's so many successful people out there that have money, that have built companies, that are founders, but they're not happy. Would you say you're happy with what you've created, and internally, you're at peace with everything that's happening around you?
I would confidently say I am one of the happiest people I know.
I feel it radiating from you, yes.
And what drives that is not because I'm smarter than anyone else or I work harder than anyone else, but it's
an internal feeling, right?
It's an internal feeling driven by so many factors, an alignment with the ultimate energy that drives all of us. And it's being on a life mission to change the world, to be a better place for our children and generations to come.
Would you say that's your purpose?
It is my purpose. My purpose is to really unlock human potential for starting with young kids. And each one of us needs to contribute to this world and this planet and universe in something. This is my calling. And in fact, it's with me from the time I wake up till the time I sleep. I look forward to sleeping, so I wake up and continue with this mission. And so I would say it's not about waking up at 4 a.m. It's not about sleeping early or late. It's about what you do in those hours.
And that me time.
And have those frameworks that support you. And I think the consensus behind waking up early for founders is actually a little bit selfish, is because before the world wakes up and before the action and challenges start, you need a me time to help you structure and organize.
Where time is a bit slowed down in those few hours.
Exactly. So, they say 1 hour of planning saves 4 hours of execution. So I think a lot of us entrepreneurs use that time to really align and structure our thinking, which gives us a lot of efficiency for the rest of the day.
Beautiful, Badr, honestly. God bless you. It's such an amazing way to look at life. and we should all take, this as a role model, as something that all of us, I think, should do eventually. Now, since our interview is coming to an end, I have one last question for you that I tend to ask everyone. If I were to give you a time machine and you could go all the way back in time, to 11, 12-year-old version of yourself, maybe even younger, what would you tell that younger version of yourself?
That's a very interesting question. I would tell my younger self to take it easy. Yes, you're trying to change the world, but try to have fun along the way as well.
On that right.
Yeah, I would advise myself to do that. I see my daughter doing that now, and I try to tell her to take it easy.
How old is she?
She's now 17.
Oh, okay.
And I every day I go to sleep, relax, stop studying, and just take a break. And so I tell my daughter what I would tell myself. And actually, my daughter asked me this question a couple of years ago. She said, Baba, if you're to change one thing,
what would it be?
What would it be? And I bounced the question back at her, because once you have kids, you realize that they're much smarter than us, actually. So
especially the Gen Zs these days.
I said, Judy, what would you change if you were in my life and you're asking a question? She said, nothing. I said, why? She said, because...
Look at you now.
Exactly. If you change anything in your life previously, one parameter, the sequence of events might have not led to where you are here. And I love you, and I don't want anything to have stopped me being your daughter here at this moment.
No, that's
and it was like a moment. And my son asked me, he said, Dad, what would Earth be without art? And he was very young.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I said,
your kids are very philosophical.
What do you think Earth would be like? He said, ugh. I said, what does that mean? He said, remove the A-R-T, art, from Earth. It's E-H. I thought he was just being funny, but then he is...
Like you saw a meme or something,
yeah,
and he just...
But then he started explaining to me how important art is to this universe. You're wearing very nice, colorful outfit, and he just said we would all look the same.
Right.
If there's no art, the buildings would look the same. This would be the same. And he just went on for... So I've learned from kids, at least my own kids, is that I wouldn't change anything in the sequence of things, but I would tell my younger self what I tell my daughter now.
Right.
Take it easy, or at least enjoy the process.
Right. Do you wish one day that they take over, Lamsa?
It's their journey. I wish for them to be happy.
Okay.
And to be passionate about doing whatever they're doing.
Right.
Whether that's in Lamsa, whether that's in arts or engineering or whatever they do in life. I just wish them to be happy and content and driven by something that really would wake them up in the morning and have them look forward to waking up the next morning.
Right. Well, I think Judy and your son will watch this interview one day, and you should be extremely proud of having such a father. And thank you so much, Badr, for this interview.
Thank you, Mina, so much.
You're absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
And we look forward to many more with you. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
And one day when I'll help my kids, I'll send you a text.
Please, I'd like to thank you for your amazing question and for the rest of your team who are helping us to put this together. So thank you all very much.
Shukran, shukran.
Thank
Have an
you.
amazing day.
Thank you, Mina.
Thanks.